So according to reports out there, USC and UCLA are going to be leaving the Pac-12 conference for the Big Ten, and this can happen as soon as 2024. Now, I apologize in advance if I talk a little bit too fast in this segment, but I'm really excited. I am so excited to talk about this. I had to drop what I was doing right away. I was in the middle of finishing one of my college assignments for one of my classes, and it's due at 11:59, but I had to put that on hold because this is way more important than college right now. College football is changing. If you are a old school college football fan, you've been watching this sport for 20, 30 plus years, you were watching back in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, you most likely are really upset right now about what's going on. You're looking at your phone screen and you're looking like this, pulling your hair out, because the college football that you grew up with, that you knew and loved, has pretty much changed. This is a completely different era of college football. With the transfer portal, you have guys leaving left and right. It's a couple of guys. It's somebody that I went to high school with that has hit the transfer portal 3 times in the last 2 years. He just posted another picture at the FBS program. And I'm saying, bro, how many times you going to transfer? You get what I'm saying? Pick a school and stay there. So you have the transfer portal. You have the NIL deal, the NIL deals, which are insane right now. And then now you have schools leaving for new conferences. And there's potential that we could end up having mega conferences in college football. We pretty much could have the AFC, NFC in college football. It's crazy right now. And we knew that the Big Ten was eventually going to expand. Because you remember when Oklahoma and Texas, the news broke that they were going to be leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. We were wondering how the Big 12 was going to survive. And then they expand, they bring in Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston, and now they're in pretty good shape. But you look at the Pac-12 losing UCLA and USC, they're looking in really bad shape right now. They're in critical condition. If you guys ever play Mortal Kombat right now, they have to finish him right now. Because the Pac-12 may look like it's about to be out and done for the count. And a lot of people who are upset about this move, they're asking a lot of questions. They're asking, JT, what about the geography? Because this doesn't make any sense. You have West Coast teams who are going to be having to travel all the way to the middle portion of the country to play schools like Ohio State and Michigan. How does this make any sense from a location standpoint? Well, my friend, let me tell you something. Geography doesn't matter anymore. You get what I'm saying? At this point, teams are now chasing that money. So when it comes to the kickoff times and what time the game's going to be played, they're probably going to make it more favorable for these Pac-12 schools. They're probably, instead of going to have 12 p.m. Eastern time kickoffs, they're probably going to have the games played a little bit more later on in the day, probably kicking off around 6 or 4 o'clock. I got to say Eastern time because I'm not from the central or west coast part of the country. I live in Florida, so we go off the East Coast time. But the Big Ten is going to make accommodations for these 2 Pac-12 schools that are going to be entering their conference. So I'm not really too concerned about the kickoff times and how this makes sense geography-wise, because it doesn't. You get what I'm saying? Geography is now out of the window. And for USC and UCLA, I mean, when it comes to traveling, you have private jets, man. You have airplanes. You can fly from West Coast to the middle portion of the country in a span of what, 4 or 5 hours? First class, eating good? So I don't really think that geography makes as big as a sense as people think that it's going to make when it comes to making this move. Because at the end of the day, when you're chasing money, you got to do what you got to do. Now, for the Big Ten, this benefits them because now they expand to the LA market. You expand to the state of California, one of the most influential states when it comes to that high school pipeline to college football. Now, if you're asking, okay, JT, is USC going to be able to compete in the Big Ten? Yes, they are. And if you don't think so, then I probably have to call you a hater. Because there's no way you're going to tell me, with USC being right smack dab in LA with Lincoln Riley as their head coach, that they're going to struggle to be able to compete with the Michigans and Ohio States of the world. They are in one of the most talented states for high school football in America, and they have easy access to it. You already seen how USC recruiting has taken off ever since Lincoln Riley became the head coach of the Trojans. And on top of that, they got a lot of money. Money is not a problem. And in this day and age with the NIL coming around, you got to have boosters and alumni that are able to dish out that money to get some of these top name recruits. So if you think that USC one bit is going to struggle in the Big Ten, I think you're sadly mistaken. And you just heard Ryan Day come out a couple of weeks ago, and he said that if Ohio State is going to be able to keep up in the NIL era with some of these other programs, they're going to need at least $13 million a year. So for USC, they're not going to struggle in the Big Ten at all. Now, they may have some complications if they have to go on the road and play Ohio State and Michigan in late October. Okay, because one thing about people who grow up in these warm weather states such as Cali and Florida, we hate playing in the cold weather. It is absolutely gruesome. I remember one time I played a game that was in 40 degrees? You know what I had to do? I had to put some Vaseline on, had to thicken up, had to wear some long sleeves. It's awful if you are somebody who grew up playing in Florida and California weather all your life, and then you get the first taste of playing football in 10-degree weather. It's terrible. And it's when you get tackled, it's like getting tackled on glass. I hate it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of these West Coast kids, they're going to hate it as well. But at the end of the day, you have to adjust. And a lot of these guys are going to end up playing on Sundays. And more times than not, you're going to be playing in cold weather games come October. So you might as well get used to it now. So for USC, I don't think they're going to have any problem when it comes to being able to compete in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be up there with Ohio State, with Michigan. I'm not worried about that. If anything, Michigan should be more concerned because USC is a powerhouse when it comes to recruiting. They don't even have to leave their city to get some of the best talent in America. It's right there in their backyard. Now, UCLA, on the other hand, okay, I kind of think that the only reason they're really a part of this is because USC said, hey, man, if I'm going to join the Big Ten, I got to bring my little brother with me. I'm not leaving unless I can bring little bro with me because I got to watch over him. So for UCLA, I kind of just think that it was kind of a package deal. If you're going to get USC, you had to bring a partner along with them. And I think that UCLA was that partner. Now, UCLA, I don't think they're going to be that great. I think they're going to kind of be a middle dweller in this conference. And the reason for that is because, first of all, you have Chip Kelly as your head coach, which I love Chip Kelly. I think he's a really good X's and O's guy. But when you're trying to win championships in college football, it's about recruiting. And you have to be able to recruit at a very high level. And that's something that Chip Kelly hasn't really done a great job at UCLA. So you wonder if UCLA joining the Big Ten is going to give their recruiting a little bit of a boost, but I don't really know. So for UCLA, I think they're probably going to be a middle of the road team at best in the Big Ten. Maybe they have a couple of years when they pull off 9 wins, maybe 10. But overall, I just think that for UCLA, I don't know if the recruiting is going to be there. Plus, you have to compete with USC as well in the same city, in the same state, and the majority of those top-ranked California recruits are going to USC over UCLA. So I don't think that UCLA is going to become the cream of the top in this conference, and I really think that they just came along for the ride just because they knew that it was a lot of money to be earned in the Big Ten. Now, from a basketball sense, even though I'm talking about college football, I think UCLA is going to be really good in the Big Ten. They have a really good, rich college basketball history tradition. They have a rabid fan base when it comes to college basketball. So in that aspect, they're going to be really good. But when it comes to the college football side of it, I don't really know. Now, maybe you can make the argument and say that, well, JT, with them joining the Big Ten, they probably are going to get more financial compensation, which is going to allow the athletic department to put more money into recruiting, which recruiting could end up being better. And yeah, it could. But at the same time, Chip Kelly isn't really known for his recruiting skills. As a matter of fact, Chip Kelly is one of those coaches that he gets players that aren't the highest ranked that fit his scheme, and then he tries to build around that. And plus, he also has used the transfer portal pretty hard ever since it came into effect. So he may just be in a situation where you're joining a powerhouse conference, and for UCLA to be able to remain afloat in the middle of the pack, they got to be able to hit the transfer portal and utilize it hard. And I think he does do a pretty good job at doing that. So overall, for the Big Ten, this is a win. You expand to the California market. You bring in USC, one of the biggest names, not only in college football, but in sports. That Trojans logo is recognizable worldwide. Everybody probably knows about the University of Southern California. Now, even though USC has been down for a couple of years, they haven't been down bad as Texas has. You get what I'm saying? With Lincoln Riley as their head coach, they're going to be fine. I don't think they're going to struggle. I just think that many people are just trying to say that because they want to see USC fail. Because for some reason, we just hate the blue bloods of the sport. I guess we want to see Texas, Miami, and USC down for long. But let me tell you something. That's about to change. You're about to see these programs start to rise. Now, I don't know about Texas, but I definitely know that USC and Miami are on their way up. So let me know how you guys feel about USC and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 conference. Does it make sense to you? We're also going to be talking about this more later on this episode. We're going to be talking about what's next for the Pac-12. Is it done? What's next for Oregon, Utah, Washington? So make sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel. You turn on post notifications, or if you don't want to wait for that other segment to come out and you guys want to hear my thoughts on it now, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. A lot of you guys don't know this, but every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format. You can listen to the full episode of the JT Sports Podcast way before I upload any of these segments on YouTube. All you got to do is go down to the description down below or go to the pinned comment section and you will see the links to the Apple Podcast or the Spotify Podcast, or you can go to whichever podcast service you use to listen to podcasts. Type in JT Sports Podcast. It should pop up. Make sure that you guys go ahead and check it out if you guys want to hear my other thoughts further before that segment drops on YouTube.